Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. If you jump on here live here on this midday Monday, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Please make sure to give the video a like, a thumbs up, just because it helps the algorithm of the channel and doesn't cost you a thing. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so and share the video on all social media platforms. Good afternoon to you as well, Kevin. And as always, it's a great day to be a Clemson Tiger fan. Every day is a good day to be a Clemson fan. My main topic today is Money in the Bank. So if you're a wrestling fan, you will definitely want to stick around for today's main topic. But first, let me say, in case I have not said this enough so far this year, and I probably haven't because it's just been an embarrassment so far, but the Atlanta Braves need to go ahead and make a managerial change. And it's not that I don't like Brian Snitker, because I do, but he'll be 70 years old in October. And the Braves have shown a recent history that if they don't go ahead and give you a new contract in the midst of your current contract, it's a pretty good sign that you're not returning. And since it's the last year of Snitker's deal and he has not got a new contract, pretty much tells you this is his last year, and he's 70 years old, so if it is, you can't blame the guy. But right now, there's only two teams in the National League who have a worse record than the Braves. I mean, they're absolutely pitiful. And everybody talked about Acuna coming back, and they have gotten worse since he returned. They don't have a closer. That's not Snitker's fault. But when your season's pretty much already in shambles and you know your manager's not returning next year, why not go ahead and let him go now and name an interim manager? And if they're successful, you can give them a permanent job. If not, you're giving yourself time to find somebody else. But I think it was Lou Holtz, but one of the old coaches always said that in the professional coaching industry, no matter what sport it is, most managers or coaches have about a 10-year lifespan. Because after that, it's not like college sports where you pretty much have, half a new roster every year. For the most part, in professional sports, your core players are there every year. And after 7, 8, 9, 10 years, everything that can be done and said after a win, they've heard and seen. Everything that can be done and said after a loss, they've done and heard and said. So after a while, everything that you're saying and doing after a win or a loss is falling on deaf ears, and it just seems like no matter what Snitker tries, it's not working, which tells me the clubhouse is pretty much just not hearing or not believing what he says because they've heard it so many times. But this is his 10th year, 9th full year. He took over in 2016 when they fired Freddie Gonzalez. Hey there, Rainbow. Glad to have you here. So hopefully we'll see the Braves make a managerial change coming up in the next couple of weeks. And I know that Brian Snitker has worked with the organization since the 1920s, so I don't think they're going to fire him, but hopefully he'll do the right thing and just go ahead and step down. It's morning where you are. Well, Rainbow, I'm not sure where you are, but good Monday morning to you wherever you are. But on to today's main topic, which is Money in the Bank. And if you're a wrestling fan, this is a amazing time for you, especially if you like more than one wrestling organization. I know some fans only like AEW, some only like WWE, but if you like any kind of wrestling, it's a great time for you. I think I heard last week on Friday before Money in the Bank on Saturday that we had Money in the Bank Saturday. You're a softball fan and softball player. Well, Rainbow, let me know sometime who you play for. I'd love to see some highlights of your team or teams if you play for more than one team. But we had Money in the Bank Saturday. Then we have Night of Champions coming up in 3 weeks on June 28th. And then in July, you have AEW's All In. Plus, you have WWE's Great American Bash. And also Evolution. And then early August, you have SummerSlam. So you have Money in the Bank, which just happened, Night of Champions, All In, Evolution, Great American Bash, and SummerSlam. Those 6 big shows all coming up in a little less than 2 months. So that's 6 big shows in less than 2 months. That's pretty doggone good. You're playing 10 and under next year. Well, good luck to you, Rainbow, and thank you for subscribing. Tell your friends and tell your family about the channel. And when softball starts next year, please make sure to come back on here and keep me updated with how not just yourself but how your team is doing in softball. But Money in the Bank on Saturday, I personally thought it was a great show with one downfall, which I'll talk about coming up here in a few minutes. But, you know, the only thing WWE does that I don't like, but I understand why they do it, because, you know, it's no longer owned by a wrestling guy. It's owned by a business. So it's turned into a business. But, you know, if you watch the premium live events, when a match ends, between the commercials they've got to play and all the sponsorship they've got to talk about and the next big PLE coming up, there's about a 15-minute break between a match ending and the next match starting, which tells you why when they have their big premium live events like WrestleMania and SummerSlam, you know, why they're 2 nights. Because Saturday Money in the Bank started at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. They only had 5 matches, and it was on till 10:17 Eastern Time. So 3 hours and 17 minutes for 5 matches. Now, granted, they didn't have any 8-minute matches, so all the matches were long. But still, can you imagine if you went 3 hours and 17 minutes with 5 matches? If they'd had 8 matches, it would have been on till 12:30 in the morning. And they don't want to be like AEW and have a show last that long, which I totally understand. And that's why their big shows are 2 nights. But you don't need a 15-minute break between one match ending and the next match starting. But it's because it's a business now, so they have sponsorships that they have to either talk about between matches or commercials between matches. AEW does great. When you watch their pay-per-views, a match ends and the next match starts. But the problem is they have 27 matches, so the show still lasts 6 hours. But we opened up Money in the Bank, as we always do, with the women's Money in the Bank. Naomi defeated Julia, Stephanie Vaquer, Alexa Bliss, Rhea Ripley, and Roxanne Perez to be the women's Money in the Bank winner. And I used to didn't care anything about women's matches, but they've done such a great job here lately with booking the women that I was more intrigued with the women's ladder match than I was the men's. The men's I only saw 2, and that was pushing it, possible winners. With the women, I honestly thought 5 of the 6 could win. I didn't think Julia had a shot. But, you know, Naomi, you know, she's turned bad. They've pushed her really good since she turned bad. So I would have made sense of her winning. And then Stephanie Vaquer, obviously they're pushing her like crazy because the fans love her. She just had 3 matches in a 24-hour span, but she was the first woman to hold both NXT women's titles at the same time. So she would have won. I'd have understood it. Alexa Bliss has really had no direction. She returned at Royal Rumble. She was gone again. She came back. She was gone again. They really haven't had a clear direction for her. So I would have totally understood her winning to see that she finally has direction. And Rhea Ripley didn't need the win. She's so popular. But since she's so popular, I'd have understood if she won. And then Roxanne Perez is an incredible wrestler. So I'd have understood if she won. So going into it, thinking that 5 of the 6 have a shot to win, made it intriguing, and the match was good. More than likely, they're probably going to make it where either Jade Cargill gets the women's title and then Naomi cashes in on Jade Cargill, or they'll make it where Naomi wins the title and then Jade Cargill wants to challenge her because they've been teasing this long-term feud between Naomi and Jade for a while, so it's going to happen at some point in time. And then we had the added match that got added from Worlds Collide earlier on Saturday. Dominic Mysterio beat Octagon Jr. to retain the Intercontinental Championship. Now, this match was added, which is why they only announced 4 matches going into it, because they knew this match was going to happen. But if you just like pure wrestling and you have not watched Worlds Collide, I encourage you strongly to go back and watch it, because when it comes to Raw or Dynamite or SmackDown, NXT, any of those weekly television episodic programs, you want long-term storytelling, because that's what wrestling is. You don't want to just see matches thrown together. You want to see the story and the reason behind the match. That's what makes wrestling wrestling. But Worlds Collide was different. There wasn't supposed to be any long-term storytelling. And it was just matches thrown together because it was WWE introducing the Mexican audience to WWE style of wrestling and introducing the American audience to the Mexican style of wrestling. And all the matches were great. They were entertaining as crap. So if you just like wrestling for the sake of wrestling, watch Worlds Collide. And it's the one event you can watch and not have to worry about long-term storytelling, because there's not supposed to be any. It's supposed to just be the American wrestling versus the Mexican wrestling, and that's it. And they are completely different. The American style of wrestling, you work the left side. The Mexican style of wrestling, you work the right side. So they are completely different. Then we had the only match on the card that I thought was pretty obvious who wins, and that was Becky Lynch. I say that because she just came back. She's already lost to Lyra Valkyria twice, and they announced before the match that if Lyra won again, Becky could not challenge for the women's Intercontinental Championship as long as Lyra was champion. Well, Becky's not going to come back, wrestle Lyra 3 times, lose all 3 times, and then turn right around and challenge for the World Championship. So to me, that stipulation made it obvious Becky wins the match, and she did. And then Seth Rollins defeated Solo Sikoa, LA Knight, El Grande Americano, Andrade, and Penta to win the men's Money in the Bank. I was hoping that last week on Raw, when they had to add the 6th and final participant, they were going to add CM Punk. CM Punk ends up not being on the card and not making any kind of appearance at all. I'm not a CM Punk fan at all, but to me, with El Grande Americano getting that last spot, the only 2 possible winners I saw in this match were Seth Rollins and El Grande Americano, and I only say El Grande Americano because I could see them sometime down the line having a feud between El Grande Americano and Chad Gable to try to prove that it's not the same person. So I thought, okay, I can see El Grande Americano winning, and then later on down the road, Chad Gable challenging him to a match. And then that way you know it's not the same person. But outside of that, it was pretty obvious Seth Rollins wins. But I thought he has this new faction, which is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I've already given up all hope on this faction. It should have disbanded last week. But Seth Rollins has this new faction, so I thought he doesn't need to win. You know, he's a bad guy. He can sleaze and slime ball his way into a world title shot somehow. But Solo Sikoa's pretty much done nothing for the last 6 months. He wasn't winning. And Andrade is pretty much a mid-card guy. He's not winning. Penta's brand new to the company. He's not winning. And I think they're so convinced that LA Knight is so popular that he doesn't need to win because the fans are going to back him regardless, so he wasn't winning. So it pretty much brought me down to El Grande Americano and Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins, to me, was almost so obvious that it almost made you think he doesn't win. But as I said, I've already given up hope on this new Seth Rollins faction. It should disband immediately. It sucks. It's terrible. And to me, it's going nowhere and going nowhere fast. I don't care what they do. From this point forward, I've checked out on it. I've given up hope on it, and I'm done with it. But the only part of the match I didn't like was them bringing out Jacob Fatu and JC Mateo. And I didn't like it because, you know, this match is supposed to be about the briefcase. It's supposed to be about Money in the Bank. It's supposed to be about who might be the next world champion. But when you bring out Jacob Fatu, who the crowd loves, he might be their next huge good guy. He's a phenomenal wrestler, and I've met the guy before. I've worked the show with him. He's an incredible human being. But, you know, he has the look, and the crowd loves him. But when you bring out Jacob Fatu and JC Mateo in this match, all of a sudden the attention goes from the briefcase to the bloodline angle. And you shouldn't mix both together. The bloodline angle should be separate from the briefcase, but you made the Money in the Bank briefcase match about Solo Sikoa, who didn't even win. I think that's a terrible idea. They could have just easily had Jacob Fatu run out there and somehow, some way make Solo not win and made it a whole lot shorter segment than having them go out there and then for the next basically about 4 to 5 minutes you have a run-in spot with all those guys. That's ridiculous. But outside of that, the match was okay. And in the main event, we saw Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso defeat John Cena and Logan Paul. Ron Killings returns, and he is now going by Ron Killings. And, you know, so many people got upset in the post-show press conference when Triple H said, hey, it's all part of the show. But what do you want the guy to say? If he comes out and says, well, yeah, we fired him, but due to backlash from all the fans, we brought him back. Because then if you say that, then you're going to have fans thinking, okay, well, this means from now on, every time they fire somebody, all we got to do is show our butts and they'll bring them back. And you can't do that because then you're making it look like Ron Killings gets treated differently. You can't do that because they should all be on the same level playing field. So Triple H can't say that. So he has to come out and say it's all part of the show. There's nothing else he can say. He's a company guy. What's he going to say? But the rumor is that he actually was leaving the company, but because of the fan backlash, they decided to bring him back. And hopefully, with him changing his name and going by Ron Killings now and being serious, he's actually going to wrestle, which is good because the guy can actually wrestle. It's going to be a quick change, having to adjust to him going from the comedic guy to being a serious guy. But if you go back and watch his TNA stuff, Ron Killings can actually really, really wrestle. But at 53, I don't know how many years he's got left in him, but it's good to see that his final run is going to be him actually wrestling. I just don't know how far they can go with it, because if he's going to be serious now, that's great. But if he challenges Cena again for the world title, he's not getting the title. And then after that, what do you do with him? But if you're going to bring him back as a full-time wrestler, you can then justify him getting a contract, because now he's getting paid by a wrestling company to actually wrestle. Any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. Friends who deliberately misrepresent you to others become liabilities. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.